My first job out of college looked great on paper. I was a marketing manager at a tech company with a steady paycheck and a clear path forward. And not to toot my own horn, but I was really good at it, which almost made it worse because I'd sit at my desk and I would feel this quiet, persistent guilt. Not because I hated my job, but because I wanted more money, more freedom, more time to go inward. Wanting all of that at once felt like a contradiction I couldn't resolve. I couldn't even afford my own apartment at the time. I was living with my parents, working in marketing by day, and sneaking off to meditate and study spiritual texts at night, wondering why does it feel like I have to choose between the two? That tension between ambition and contemplation, between financial hunger and spiritual depth, it's something that I carried for years before I understood that it wasn't a contradiction, it was more of an invitation. That is what today's episode is all about. We are going to explore why shrinking yourself to fit in is costing you more than you think and how I'm finally breaking free. Welcome to Lately with Lexi, where spirituality, strategy, and storytelling meet. I'm Lexi, and for the last 10 years, I've helped health and wellness brands grow by day and guided spiritual seekers by night. Every episode explores spiritual wisdom, business building, and personal reflections from my life. So come hang out with me in the middle of my home if you are watching on Substack or over on YouTube as I share what I'm creating, learning, and navigating as a yogi, business consultant, healer, and entrepreneur. Today, we're going deep on something I've been untangling for years, and it's how to reclaim your creativity after years of shrinking yourself or by playing by other people's rules. This episode is all about living multidimensionally, being a spiritual seeker and a business owner, an artist and a strategist, being fully human and fully divine. Because here's what I've learned. We were never meant to be one thing. And when we stop trying to fit into a single box, our lives will start to soften. We become more magnetic when we allow ourselves, all parts of us, to be fully seen. I'll be breaking down 4 lessons that helped me embrace my multi-passionate self, lessons that I wish someone had given me permission to learn 10 years ago when I first entered the world of spirituality and entrepreneurship. Let's start with the lesson that took me the longest to learn, and it was probably the one I needed the most. And this is all about giving yourself the permission slip to be everything, to be all of you. I'll explain what I mean, but I want to start first with a story. So let's go back 10 years ago. It was 2016. I hired my first business coach. At the time, I was running what most people would consider 2 separate businesses at once. On one side, I was leading yoga and wellness workshops, doing health coaching, life coaching, and energy healing. On the other side, I was offering marketing services, copywriting, offer creation, sales coaching, and I was genuinely lit up by all of it. My coach looked at what I was building and told me I needed to shut down half of it. The spiritual work had to go because I was diluting my brand. I did what I was told. I wanted to be a good student, a good coachee, if you will. And I let go of every spiritual offer I was selling and I went all in on marketing services. Not long after, I was making more money than ever before in my life. I was also completely passionless. My business had turned into a job that I didn't want to go to. And here's the part that kind of embarrasses me a little bit to admit, but I was experiencing major lifestyle creep. I was making more than ever and somehow spending it faster than ever, constantly investing in the next course, the next coach, the next thing that was going to help me feel like myself again. Instead of going inward, I kept looking outward. And the further I got from my multidimensionality, the more lost I felt. And I see this pattern show up with clients too. One example, I worked with an early employee at a startup I was helping to grow. And about a year in, he mentioned wanting to build his own book of business alongside the startup. Then he went quiet about it for about a year. He came back after his first baby was born, ready to finally do it, but still tangled up in guilt about splitting his energy between the startup and his own ambitions. Like those two things were betrayals of one another. Wonder if that's relatable to anyone. What he needed wasn't strategy, he needed a permission slip. Once he gave himself permission to pursue both without one canceling out the other, things got a whole lot more clear. And I think that's true for most of us, living in a moment where people are finally learning to advocate for themselves when it comes to their health, asking better questions, doing their own research. But what about advocating for your own self expression? We don't talk about that nearly enough. Remember, the most important relationship that you will ever have is the one you have with yourself. So, when you finally allow all of yourself to exist at once, not just the parts that are easy to explain, that's when your creativity and authenticity start to shine in a way that really can't be replicated. You don't need permission to express your fullness, and you don't have to be attached to any single form that the expression takes. It's very relieving. Being everything means full participation in your life. It means letting your gifts, your ideas, your desires move through you without editing them, saying yes to what feels alive and aligned, showing up fully instead of shrinking into whatever version of you seems more acceptable to other people. I experienced this personally in 2020 when I launched a meditation membership. I had about 50 students joining me every morning for Kundalini yoga and meditation. And I led this membership for about a year, and I genuinely loved it. But underneath it, something was quietly shifting. I wanted to offer something deeper in person. I wanted closer relationships with the people I was serving. I wanted to be in a room with them, but I had a hard time admitting this to myself because I knew that with change came uncertainty. So the more I kept ignoring my heart's desires, the more live attendance in the membership started to drop. And here's what I know now that I couldn't see then, but that dwindling participation, it wasn't failure. What it was doing was actually creating space for what I wanted to build next, which was my first solo in-person yogic leadership retreat in Maui. So here's the thing that nobody tells you about full self-expression. It only works when we stop gripping the results and the outcome. So the moment I released my grip on the membership needing to look a certain way, the retreat filled. So my mantra for this is to hold the vision firmly and the timeline lightly. When you start living this way, something shifts in the questions that you ask yourself. Instead of how do I make this thing happen, you start asking, what is trying to happen through me right now? And that second question moves you out of fear-based anxiety and into present moment responsiveness, which in my experience is where the best work actually gets done. So the problem is sometimes it feels like the whole world is designed to talk you out of being multi-passionate, and that's where lesson 2 comes in. So let me take you back now to 2017. I had newly discovered internet marketing. I was genuinely excited about everything it promised. So more time freedom, location freedom, building something that was fully mine. But everywhere I turned, I kept hearing the same advice. You needed to niche down, pick one thing. You can't be everything to everyone. And I tried that the year prior, going all in on marketing, but it fell flat. So I did what any good student does. I read the book, The One Thing. I made my decision. I would just be a health coach, not someone who loved business strategy and lived and breathed marketing. I was just going to focus on health coaching. And you know what happened? Probably guessed it. I felt like I was suffocating, felt like I was denying so much of who I really was. So I would have these ideas about spirituality, exploring different business models, creative projects I was dying to explore, and I would shut them down before they ever had a chance to breathe because they weren't on brand. They didn't fit the niche of a health coach. So instead of trusting my own discernment, I continued to look outside of myself for someone to tell me what to do next. And after years of experiencing this personally and watching it happen with clients, here's what I've come to understand. When you are multi passionate and you try to force yourself into a single offer, a single lane, a single identity, you're probably going to get bored. That boredom is a signal. It's your nervous system telling you that you've outgrown the container that you've built. Then what happens? Well, we inevitably pivot, stop, or start over. And then we shame ourselves for it. We think something is wrong with us. We think we have commitment issues or ADHD really bad. We start to think everyone else figured out the one thing and we're the only one still spinning. And that story keeps us on a hamster wheel that has nothing to do with our actual capacity and everything to do with a framework that was never designed for the way that we are wired as creatives. The one thing philosophy, it works beautifully for some people, don't get me wrong. I'm not here to say that it doesn't. If you are multi-passionate or multidisciplinary, it's probably going to feel like a cage. And the longer you stay in it, the more disconnected you become from the thing that actually makes you stand out. If you are anything like me, your superpower isn't doing one thing really well. Your superpower is making connections between unseemingly related things. We all know the quote, "A jack of all trades is a master of none." Listen, that quote haunted me for years until I finally heard the full quote. A jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes better than a master of one. Let that sink in. Dan Coe calls this being a niche of one, and I think that reframe is so liberating. It's when we bring our unique blend of skills, experiences, and perspectives to everything that we create. Here's what I've realized in both my own business and in the businesses of my clients. A lot of us do not operate linearly. Instead, we operate architecturally. One thing leads to the next, not because we necessarily planned it that way on a spreadsheet, but because we trusted our intuition and followed what genuinely excited us. Now, I'm a manifestor in human design, which means I'm literally designed to initiate, to start things, to create from inspiration, and to build in bursts rather than in straight lines. And for years, I thought that this was a liability. Turns out it's kind of the whole point. I have led retreats that effortlessly pointed me towards my next offering, either because I got inspired in the room or because the people in the room started asking me for something new. I have had consulting clients who eventually wanted to come to a retreat or do healing sessions with me, not because I packaged it that way, but because they wanted to go deeper in working with me. And that's the thing about being a niche of one. Your clients are multidimensional too. They don't just want what you're selling. They want to keep working with you. So the through line, it's not your offer. It's not what you're selling. It's actually you. Now, I want to be clear. This is not an excuse to do everything at once with no focus. That's not what I'm talking about at all. That's actually a different problem, and we'll get to that in the next lesson. But the reframe I'm offering is that instead of thinking one thing forever, think about one primary focus per season. So you still choose a primary project and focus for the quarter. You still allocate most of your energy output in one direction, but you're not suppressing the rest of who you are. And you stop assuming that your life's work has to stay frozen in a single lane. So freeing when we do that. So the question I ask myself and my clients isn't what is the one thing I need to do? It's what is one leveraged focus that moves the whole ecosystem forward? That question can help create clarity without restriction. It protects your energy output without putting your creativity in a box. And when I finally let go of the one thing mentality and embraced all of me, the yogi, the consultant, the healer, the entrepreneur, that's when everything started to click. That's when I started to genuinely love my work again, and it stopped feeling like a job. So if you've been forcing yourself into a box that that feels too small, I want you to sit with this. What if the thing you think is too much is actually your greatest advantage? What if being interested in multiple things isn't a weakness? It's actually what makes you irreplaceable. Now, we've established that you're allowed to be everything and that the one thing is a myth for people like us. But what if you're still feeling scattered and pulled in too many different directions? Totally normal, by the way. This leads us to lesson 3. You can do it all, but you can't do it all right now. Hopefully that can help relax you. So there's a difference between honoring all parts of yourself and trying to do all of it at the same time. And that distinction took me longer to learn than I would like to admit. Do I want to write a book? Absolutely. Do I want to invest in real estate in France? Yes, eventually. But I know right now isn't the time for either of those things. And instead of beating myself up about it, I've learned to let them simmer. Now, if you enjoy cooking, you know that some of the best sauces come from hours of low, slow heat. Our dreams can work that same way. The ones that matter don't disappear just because you're not actively working on them. They wait, they simmer. And when the timing is right, trust that you will know. What I found is that multi-passionate people, and I say this with so much love because I am one, we tend to want to do everything at once. Right? We get really excited. But when we try, we end up with scattered attention, diluted energy, and projects that never fully mature. Not because we're not capable, but because we spread ourselves thin across too many different directions all at once, and then nothing gets the depth it deserves. Sound familiar? The key isn't doing less, it's about being seasonal with where and what we're focused on. Life moves in cycles, and the key is to honor them. One idea leads for a season. Others stay warm in the background, but they aren't your primary focus, and that's okay because we know the cycle will rotate. There will be a new season. And when you accept that rhythm instead of fighting it, your expression actually expands rather than shrinks. Now, personally, I follow the wheel of the year, and I like to sync my creative efforts with the turn of the seasons. If you'd like me to do a deep dive on creating harmony with nature, let me know in the comments and I can release an entire episode about how I specifically do that. But in general, when it comes to honoring cycles, the intention is not to suppress your other passions. You're protecting them by not forcing them before their time. So for me right now, this podcast and my Substack are where my creative energy is leading. And I actually started this on the spiritual new year on September 1st of 2025. I'll link an article I wrote about it in the show notes below if you want to check it out. And I think the real test for any creative outlet is that you have to genuinely enjoy the process of making it, not just be fixated on whatever desired outcome you have in mind from that thing. So when you love the process, creating becomes sustainable. And you might be wondering, well, how do I get clear on what is important to me right now? So this is where I want to share one of my favorite tools. It is a simple journaling exercise that I use with a lot of my clients. And if you want to pause this, go ahead, grab a journal. And all you do, it's very simple. You write down everything that lights you up. Don't hold back. List out all of the projects, all of the ideas where you feel the most energized just thinking about them. Once you complete that list, you want to review the list and then circle 1 to 3 things that you feel the most momentum behind right now. The dreams you didn't circle, they're still for you, just not right now. This helps you focus. So give yourself full permission to focus on the 1 to 3 ideas that you circled without guilt for the next 3 months. Personally, I revisit this exercise at the solstices and equinoxes 4 times a year in alignment with the natural seasons. But I also come back to it anytime I'm feeling unclear, overwhelmed, or like I'm starting to doubt my path. Anytime that intuitive ping shows up that says something feels off, this is my go-to journaling. And here's what makes it so powerful beyond just getting organized on paper. Writing down your dreams not only helps your focus, but it clears the subconscious mind from distraction. It creates space, it quiets the noise. And in that quiet, your intuition gets louder. You stop feeling the pull to look outside of yourself for answers because the answers were already there. You just needed space to get honest with yourself in order to hear them and to recognize them. So, all of the dreams you wrote down but didn't circle will still be there when you're ready for them. And you'll do them better because you didn't force them before their time. Florence Scovel Finn writes about this in The Game of Life and How to Play It. Great book. If you've never checked it out, please do. And she says that if you have the vision, if you have any vision, it can be yours. Right? Sometimes your vision just needs time to breathe and come to life when it's meant to, not when our ego is trying to demand it to. So we've talked about giving yourself permission, releasing the myth of the one thing, and honoring your focus. But there's one more layer underneath all of this that I think is actually the most liberating of all. So lesson 4 is all about the yogic path of letting go of labels. One of the most important teachings in yoga is the concept of non-identification, the practice of not attaching to labels, roles, or identities. It is one of the 5 causes of suffering. It's the moment we fuse our identity to labels such as I am spiritual, I am a marketer, I am an introvert, I'm liberal, I'm Christian, I am this zodiac sign, I'm that zodiac sign. You get the point. The problem is that when we do this, we are unknowingly limiting ourselves to the things we identify with. So here's what changed for me when I really sat with this teaching. If I am all of these labels, well, I'm confined. If I'm not these labels, I am free. I am free to create. I can be a retreat leader on the weekend and a sales strategist on a Monday. I can teach breath work in the morning and, analyze a marketing funnel in the afternoon. It's all good. I am a yogi who genuinely enjoys talking about business, and I'm pretty good at it. And I've made peace with that. I can be both. None of these things individually define me. All of them express a different facet of myself. And once you get that, it is so freeing. When we're defined by a label, any threat to that label feels like a threat to our existence. We defend it. We shrink to protect it. We stop evolving because evolving might mean becoming something that label doesn't identify with. But when you consciously choose your roles instead of identifying as them, something opens up. You can allow new expressions to emerge without it feeling like an identity crisis. You can change direction without it meaning that you failed or that you have to start over. You can grow into something you don't have a name for yet, and you don't need to explain it to anyone. You stop asking, who am I supposed to be? And start asking, what is alive to express through me right now? And that question changes a lot because it moves you out of a fixed identity and into a living, breathing relationship with your own becoming. Listen, you do not have to have it all figured out. No one does, trust me. You don't need to define yourself for other people's comfort or even your own comfort. You are allowed to be a total mystery, even to yourself. And it's not a problem to solve. That's actually one of the most beautiful things about being human. The yogic understanding is that your true identity, the soul, pure consciousness, the awareness behind your experiences was never contained to a job title or a niche or a role that somebody assigned to you. You are far greater than the roles you take on. And the path of self-realization, it's not just about knowing this intellectually, it's about living it moment to moment, season to season. And we talked about this a lot last week. So if you missed that episode, go check it out. But what we're really doing here when we reclaim our creativity and stop shrinking ourselves, we're not just building better businesses or expressing ourselves more authentically. We are remembering the truth of who we are, an expression of God consciousness, that infinite potential. If you take nothing else away from today's episode, I want you to walk away with these 4 things. Nobody is going to give you permission to be your full self. That permission only comes from one place, you. You have got to advocate for your own self expression. The second is that the one thing is a myth for multi passionate creators. Your ability to move between worlds, to make connections between things that seem unrelated, to bring your, full range to everything you create, that's not a weakness or a lack of focus. It's your superpower. And third, you can do it all, just not all at once. Don't try. Honor your seasons. The uncircled dreams on your list, they're not going anywhere. Focus on what's alive right now and trust that when the timing shifts, you'll feel it. You'll listen to that nudge, that intuition. And know that the best work comes from presence, not from forcing everything to happen on the same timeline. And then finally, let go of the labels. You are not your job title, your niche, your role, even your reputation. You are the awareness experiencing all of it. And when you stop gripping those labels so tightly, you become free to evolve into whatever wants to emerge next without it feeling like you're starting over. Every time you let yourself be fully seen, you are giving others the permission to do the same thing. And that is so, so freeing. Thank you so much for listening to Lately with Lexi. Make sure you subscribe on Substack to stay up to date with my writings, any upcoming events, workshops, retreats. You can also subscribe over on YouTube for the video version of the podcast. Listen and leave a review on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. That just really helps me be able to reach more people. And if you want to explore working together, all of the links are in the show notes below. If you're in Southwest Florida, I will be leading a workshop March 20th that weekend. So come and hang out with me in person if you can, and leave any comments, feedback, thoughts in the comments. I love reading all of your guys' reflections. All right, I'll see you next week.